So, a single day after I made a video about an English housewife being arrested for flying a British flag outside a court, while the famed Palestinian megaphone death convoy resulted in no prosecutions at all, a single day after that video, the British government keeps providing me with an endless well of marvellous content. Because apparently this fella, the well-known, internationally renowned comedy writer Graham Linehan, was arrested by 5 armed police when he returned from doing a podcast in the United States. They were waiting for him at the airport, and apparently he had a panic attack or something, and they dragged him off to the cells. He tells the whole story on Substack, which a lot of people are missing out. So we'll go there and I'll read you it and give you my thoughts. But just one thing for those of you wondering, the IV in his arm there, that's not because of anything related to high blood pressure or a panic attack, no. That's because in the UK, if you return from a trip to the United States, they're worried that while you're over here, you'll get some like right-wing views. Yeah, or you might go to a range or talk to some Republicans and it'll push your testosterone up. So now they have made it mandatory, the British government, that whenever an American flight lands at Heathrow, you're instantly placed on a soy and estrogen drip and then forced to watch 12 episodes of My Little Pony before they release you. Definitely not authoritarian at all. Right then, I'm sure you've all seen the tweet. Everybody's talking about this today because it's mental and it's just more evidence. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of weird that you might need any more evidence at this point. You could have spent the last 4 years walking around with a bin liner stapled to your forehead and you'd be aware of how bad it's got in the UK. Even my in-laws ask me about it now. They're like, what's going on in England? Wasn't your country the entire basis for the Bill of Rights and the American Constitution? I thought you had freedom of speech over there. No, you don't. No. And if you're on holiday in America, like Mr. Linehan was, and you say right-wing things, when you land, the Stasi will be waiting for you to give you the aforementioned soy and estrogen infusion at gunpoint. Okay, that's what happens now, and that's what happened here. So let's have a read of his Substack, shall we? Unlike so many people that have got Substack accounts, the good thing about Graham's is he can actually write. So it's not a chore to get through like some of them. And he's just finished this piece. I just got arrested again. I arrived back in London to discover the UK is still a police state run by trans activists. Well, you know what your problem is, Graham? You were daft enough to come back. The Bootneck, being a visionary genius, was well aware of this. Why do you think my last trip home, and I'm not making this up, this is how authoritarian the UK is. I knew it was an authoritarian police state, and I'm a born and raised Englishman who served his country for 5 tours and 10 years. And on my last trip home, I paid for a visa and flew on my US passport because I was convinced that the British state would arrest me for having the temerity to have a comedy YouTube channel which rips the piss out of the psychopaths that run the country. That's how bad the UK is. The fact that I even have to think that, and the fact that I can't fly on my British passport, proves that it's an authoritarian state. I shouldn't even be concerned about these things. But if you pay attention, you know how bad it's got. I'm telling you, if I'd have went home on my British passport, I guarantee I would have spent my holiday locked in a cell with electrodes on my testicles and the Prime Minister personally checking my anal cavity for drugs, because we all know he's into that kind of thing, don't we? Anyway, let's read the story. Here he is with his soy and estrogen infusion. Something odd happened before I even boarded the flight in Arizona. When I handed over my passport at the gate, the official told me I didn't have a seat and had to be re-ticketed. At the time, I thought it was just the sort of innocent snafu that makes air travel such a joy. But in hindsight, it was clear I'd been flagged. Someone somewhere, probably wearing unconvincing makeup and his sister's underwear, had made a phone call. Henry Winkler on the water boy with his high-heeled shoes on. I hate him, I hate him, I hate him. The moment I stepped off the plane at Heathrow, 5 armed police officers were waiting. Not 1, not 2, but 5. They escorted me to a private area and told me I was under arrest for 3 tweets. Amazing, amazing. We're an international laughingstock. They don't do that in China or Russia, do they? In a country where paedophiles escape sentencing, where knife crime is out of control, and where women are assaulted and harassed every time they gather to speak, the state had mobilised 5 armed police officers to arrest a comedy writer for this tweet, and I promise you I'm not making this up. And he's good enough to show us the whole thing. If a trans-identified male is in a female-only space, he is committing a violent, abusive act. Make a scene, call the cops, and if all else fails, oh, well, that's what's done you, Graham. Technically, actually, that's promoting violence. Yeah, of course it is. Of course it is. But remember, when these blokes, these hairy, scary, swarthy, beardy weirdies, drove through the middle of London with megaphones chanting, I can't even say any of it because I'll get banned. You can't even say any of that. A stream of vitriolic hatred imploring you to surprise sex the mothers and children of a group of people. When they did that, nobody got charged for it. None. The police said, oh, freedom of speech, lads. But this, an obvious joke, not allowed. Do not pass go. Do not collect £200. Go straight to the overcrowded jail that is brimming with thought criminals. Marvellous. The other tweet was simply this, a photo you can smell. I don't even know. I don't know how that one can be illegal. And then a follow-up to that one. I hate them. Misogynists and homophobes. F them. So, I mean, the second half's a left-wing thing, isn't it? In fact, back in the good old days, that was what the left used to say. I miss those days, don't you? I just said that to a fella on Twitter. This lefty imbecile. I miss when racists were afraid to be racist. Yeah, well, I miss when the left defended women and freedom of speech instead of 250,000 Puma trackies with a lob on. Yeah, I miss those days. Remember when all the comedians were left-wing and they used to take the piss out of right-wing religious people? Well, what do you call the most conservative religious people on planet Earth? This is what I'm saying to you about these people being completely deranged. If a polite Southern Baptist says things about gay people or trans people, the left lose their minds about it. But if Abu Hamza, the one-eyed, hook-handed hate preacher of death, says the same stuff, they defend him. Think of that. And Mr. Linehan, who we're all defending now, fair enough, he's done his mea culpa and he's conceded he was wrong, but only 7 or 8 years ago, he was one of them because he was a lefty lovey. And he had to pop at Count Dankula and called him a full-blown adherent of the Austrian painter because he was a bit of an idiot. At least he saw the error of his ways. Anyway, he continues, when I first saw the cops, I actually laughed. I couldn't help myself. Don't tell me you've been sent by the trans activists. The officers gave no reaction, and this was a theme throughout most of the day. Among the rank and file, there was a sort of polite bafflement. Very professional, but most had absolutely no idea what this was about. Kind, because the officers saw how upset I was when they began reading me my rights. The red mist descended, and I came close to becoming one of those police body cam videos where you can't believe the perp isn't just doing what he's told. And they treated me gently after that. They even arranged for a van to meet me on the tarmac so I didn't have to be perp walked through the airport like a terrorist. Small mercies. At Heathrow police station, my belt bag and devices were confiscated. Then I was shown into a small green tiled cell with a bunk, a toilet, and a message from Crime Stoppers on the ceiling. Next to a concave mirror that was presumably there to make you reflect on your life choices. By some miracle, I managed to doze off. After the Premier Economy seat in which I just spent 10 hours, it was actually a relief to stretch out. That passed the time, although I kept waking up wondering if it was all actually happening. Later during the interview, the tone shifted. The officer conducting it asked about each of the terrible tweets in turn, with the sort of earnest intensity usually reserved for discussing something serious. I explained that the punch tweet was a serious point made with a joke, and that men who enter women's spaces are abusers that need to be challenged. He mentioned trans people, and I asked him what he meant by the phrase, people who feel their gender is different was assigned at birth. I said, assigned at birth? Our sex isn't assigned. He called it semantics. I told him he was using activist language. The damage Stonewall has done to the UK police force will take years to mend. I love that. I love that. He said assigned at birth. And when he said assigned, the cop was like, Trivial semantics. What do you mean assigned? So again, how many times have I said this? They're like a religion, they're like a cult. The language is the same. Assigned, like God makes us all on a production line and they come down and him and Jesus are stood there assigning all of the little labels to us. Again, noticing the difference between a male baby and a female baby isn't a decision made by the doctor. It's obvious. It's been obvious since time immemorial. Cavemen knew the difference between a boy baby and a girl baby. They didn't need to think about it. Or, one of my favourite memes, can tell the story in a much more jocular manner. What is it, doctor? A boy or a girl? We're not allowed to assume the gender anymore, but it's got a cock. Eventually, a nurse came to check on me and found my blood pressure was in stroke territory. The stress of being arrested was threatening my life, so I was escorted to A&E, where I write this now after spending 8 hours under observation. The doctors suggested the high blood pressure was stress-related, combined with long-haul travel. I feel it may have been a contributing factor that I've now spent 8 years being targeted by activists, working in tandem with the police state because I refuse to believe that lesbians have cocks. Brilliant. As I said, the lad's a good writer, I'll give him that. He now has a single bail condition. He's not allowed to go on Twitter. That's it. No threats, no speeches, just a legal gagging order designed to shut me up while I'm in the UK and demand I face a further interview in October. So that's it. And thus we arrive at the point of the arrest. They are shutting him up. Because when he talks, people listen. And when he makes salient points, people agree with him. And when he points out that if you're packing 8 inches on the slack, doesn't matter how much lippy you put on, doesn't matter if you rock up at court wearing a pink bomber jacket and carrying a pink handbag and doing all of them stereotypes about women that activists claim don't exist, doesn't matter if you do any of that, you definitely shouldn't be getting put in the same cell as a biological woman. Nobody with 2 brain cells to rub together thinks that's controversial, but here we are. So, if you're foreign and you're labouring under the delusion that the UK isn't a police state, I'm sorry to burst your bubble. It is. And they'll rip up the rule book to make sure that influential people don't speak. So, this reminds me of a video I made a few weeks back, pointing out that if you're an Indian and you grab some young blonde lass's knockers in the middle of a boozer, the coppers won't do anything about it. But if you're a YouTuber, they're coming for you. They definitely are. So, Paz, rotten politics, we got a problem, British Landure, possibly even the Lotus Eaters. I mean, it does seem like the bigger your platform, the more protection you've got. But they will come for you all eventually. I guarantee you that. If you disagree, please let me know in the comments. I will read them all after I have finished polishing my guns, counting my ammunition, and praying that the Metropolitan Police come round my house for tweets. All right? Thanks for watching. See you all tomorrow. Toodle pip. Cheers.